Hey folks, and welcome to a new episode of the MSC podcast. My name is Moritz Weber-Schön, and today I have the great privilege to talk to Yannick Jung, Head of Global Banking at BNP Paribas CIB and member of the Group Executive Committee at BNP Paribas, and thus to discuss finance directly as an executive committee member of Europe's leading and largest banking group. Dear Yannick, many thanks for taking your time to talk to us about your personal experience gained over several decades in the financial industry.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yannick was educated at ESCP Business School and then completed the French International Internship Program at Banque Idrissiens in Vietnam. He then joined BNP Paribas in 1997 as an analyst and worked mainly in the Media and Telcom Finance division in the following years. From 2007 to 2012, he was general manager of BNP Paribas Tokyo branch and therefore has hands-on experience in the APAC region. From 2012, he took on various leading roles at BNP Paribas CIB, including Head of Corporate Coverage EMEA, since 2017, Head of Global Banking EMEA, and finally, as of last year, Head of Global Banking. In addition, he has been member of the Group Executive Committee of BNP Paribas since 2021. BNP Paribas' diversified and integrated banking model is often described as the cornerstone of BNP Paribas' approach to serving its clients' needs. What exactly does that mean, and how would you describe BNP Paribas as a group?
Well, thank you, Moritz. And before I talk to you about the integrated model, let me maybe tell you a little bit about the BNP Paribas group. So there's a few things I'd like you to know about that. The first thing, and you mentioned it, is that we are, by all measurement, all intents and purposes, we are the largest European bank. And that comes in across all of the metrics. You look at the market cap, you look at the sales, you look at the profitability, you look at the number of clients we have or the balance sheet size. A few numbers just to set the scene. Revenues last year, 2023, ranked in at more than 47 billion euros. Net profit was north of 11 billion euros, so that's sizable by any measure. We are running a total balance sheet size of close to 2.6 trillion euros. And just last year, we are extending more than 700 billion euros of loans, of credit to corporates around the world. So that's just to set the scene. The second thing I would like you to know about us is that we have a very strong and deep international presence. We are running full banking operations in 63 countries around the world. We have 180,000 employees worldwide. But our roots are truly in Europe. This is where the group started. This is our original history, started over 150 years ago, right at the border between Germany and France. And as a result, our DNA is truly European. Actually, close to 3/4, 75% of our employees are actually working in Europe. And this is where our heart and our history lies. The first thing I would like to mention to you is that beyond the integrated dimension of our business model, we are also having and running a very diversified business model. What do we mean by this? Is that we are servicing lots of different kinds of clients. Wealthy, affluent private individuals, entrepreneurs and wealthy families, financial institutions, as well as corporates. And we are running global industrial platforms that are offering to each one of those client segments financial solutions that they need. And we're helping them manage their savings, we're helping them invest their surplus cash, we're helping them hedge against many different kinds of risks, access capital to finance their project, be it buying a home or buying another company. We are offering services in many different fields. Obviously banking, corporate banking, investment banking, but also in the area of markets, in the area of retail banking, but also insurance, car leasing, consumer loans, just to name but a few, asset management. And this is diversification at work. And this is offering us a hedge. This is a business hedge for us. When one of our activities is actually going down or not doing too well, the others are making up for it. Now, beyond this diversification of our business model, it is also integrated. That was the start of your question, Moritz. And what this means for us is that our different businesses are cooperating with one another very closely. Whenever we start a working relationship with a client, be it a Mittelstand German corporate, be it a financial sponsor, be it a wealthy family, well, our objective becomes immediately to provide that given client with as broad a range of services and solutions across the many businesses of BNP Paribas we can provide. We are not a sum of independently run divisions that are each having their standalone strategies, that are developing, separate, segregated client franchises. No, not at all. Our operating divisions are cross-referencing clients, are cross-referencing business opportunities to one another all the time. And we believe that none of our businesses can actually be successful on its own. It's by the combining all of our strengths in our different activities that we can actually strive, succeed, expand, and service our clients to the best of our capabilities. And this is the integrated model and the diversified model of BNP Paribas. This is what it's all about. And I promise you, it's deeply rooted. At the end of the day, it's deeply rooted in a culture of collaboration.
Yeah, great. And could you maybe start by giving us an introduction, especially to BNP Paribas Corporate and Institutional Banking, and also explain how it is positioned within the BNP Paribas Group, and also what products are you offering, and maybe what clients are you serving in this special division?
Sure. Now, the corporate and institutional banking division is very dear to my heart because this is where I grew up. This is where I spent the last 25 years, and this is my professional family, if you want. So it's to put it simply, and maybe to start off there, it's one of the three operating divisions of BNP Paribas. Corporate and institutional banking, I'm going to call it CIB, is one of the three operating divisions. We have annual sales of roughly 16.5 billion euros. That means it's a good third of the consolidated net banking income of BNP Paribas. And it's a division that focuses especially on corporates and financial institutions as client segments. Now, for your reference, the other two operating divisions of the BNP Paribas Group are, on the one hand, the commercial and personal banking solutions division. So this is the retail bank and a number of specialized activities like consumer lending. And then the third operating division is investment and protection solutions. This is where we have our insurance, our asset management, our private bank, as well as our real estate activities. Now, IPS, investment and protection solutions, account for a sixth of the revenues of the group. CPBS, commercial and personal banking solutions, accounts for half of the sales of the group, and then CIB, that I'm going to expand on now, is a good third. Now, CIB is itself organized along three main operational divides. First one is markets, which is all about trading and hedging for corporates as well as in financial institutions. Second division is security services, which is mostly catering for the needs of asset managers, of insurance companies, of financial institutions at large, providing them with custody, asset custody services, as well as fund administration solutions. And then the third one, banking, that's the one I lead, banking, which is catering mostly for the needs of corporates. Banking is about helping corporates manage their cash, handle their trade financing requirements, their working capital solutions requirements. It's also about helping them raise capital in the debt and the equity markets. And it's about providing them with advice around their strategy. It's about M&A. It's about capital structure. It's about, first and foremost as well, giving them access to the global network of BNP Paribas. Now, and this is important for all of you to understand, at the core of the strategy of CIB lies this very important notion that we are at the service of the real economy, and we view ourselves as a bridge between the supply and the demand of capital, right? We are acting as a bridge between our corporate as well as our financial institution franchise, giving them investment opportunities and also helping them access the capital needed to grow and expand, be that organically or be that through external growth. Now, few of you may actually realize that, but with the 16.5 billion euros of revenues that I was referring to for CIB, we've actually have become over the years the number one European CIB on the global stage in terms of revenues. That means we are the sixth largest global CIB. We've got like 5 US competitors ahead of us, but no European bank is running as big a CIB operation as we are. And as it happens, from one year to the next, we're increasing the gap to our pursuance and we're reducing the gaps to the 5 banks that are ahead of us. And in fact, if you zoom in on Europe, which is our stronghold, right? This is where our heart and our history lies. If you zoom in on Europe, my business today, banking, is the number one operations of all our competitors. No other banks makes more revenues in Europe than CIB, BNP Paribas does. The same applies for security services. We're the biggest platform in Europe in terms of revenues. And then in the field of markets, we're not number one yet. We're getting close to the top 3 and should get there in a couple of years. And on the global stage, I was telling you we're number 6. Well, in Europe, for the CIB activities as a whole, banking plus security services plus markets, we're actually number 3 and very close to the number 2, which is a US competitor. And then the number 1 is another one US competitor. I'll let you guess who they are, but they're the global biggest financial institution in the world. So as I speak to you right now, we're mid-September or getting close to late September, I'm happy to tell you that we have continued to consolidate our positions of strength. We are today, if you look at capital markets, so debt and equities, we're the biggest capital markets house in Europe in terms of the percentage of fees that we have been earning in that market. Incidentally, we're also the number one European investment bank. If you look across M&A fees and debt and equities underwriting fees, there's no other European bank in Europe that has been making more fees than we are, and that makes us the 4th largest European bank, investment bank makes us the 4th largest investment bank in Europe. Sorry about that. And still, while I'm on the field of investment banking, as we speak today, in the field of M&A advisory, which is very important for us, we're actually the 4th largest advisor looking at the volumes of transactions we've been advising on since the start of the year. We're also, for your information, running the biggest cash management and the biggest trade finance operations of any bank in Europe, ranking in as number 1. And we are firmly in those activities that are very important to us. We are firmly established into the top 4 globally. Now, I want you to know also that BNP Paribas is servicing 20,000 clients around the world. Our footprint with corporates in Europe is probably the broadest and the deepest of any other bank in our industry. And just to give you a sense for what I mean there is if you care to look at all the corporations in Europe that are making more than 1 billion euro of turnover a year, and there's quite a few of these, 7 out of 10 would be banking with BNP Paribas and with my teams.
Wow, that's impressive. And you already talked a little bit about your competitors. So how does BNP Paribas approach, particularly with regards to corporate and institutional banking, deviate from the approach of sole investment banks or boutiques?
Sure, and it deviates in many, many ways. And of course, there are competitors that we respect immensely. In many instances, we're actually teaming up with them. In a lot of instances, we're fighting them off as competitors. But we think we can bring much more to the table than they can. First, and starting with the most obvious bit, is we have a balance sheet. So we can put our money where our mouth is, right? It's whenever a client does a big M&A trade, we can help them finance that. We can bridge whatever it is that they need to raise in terms of capital, and then we can help them raise that money in the debt and in the equities market where we have leading positions. And a rock solid balance sheet does make a huge difference for clients. The second aspect that I would like to mention is we are not just in the business of doing deals. We are building long-term relationship with our clients. And this is back to the integrated model plan point, is what's important for us is that we onboard on our platforms new clients. And if we are helping them do an M&A transaction, we just want to make sure that we are going to be working with them for the next 20 years. So not only will we be providing the M&A advice, not only will we help them finance their acquisition or their sale, but we will also help them hedge against the foreign exchange risk or the interest rate risk. We'll also then make sure that the company works with us for their global operations, that we help them move their cash around, that we help them manage their working capital requirements and invest their surplus cash liquidity, just to give a few examples. But if they need car leasing, they buy that from us. If they need insurance, they buy that from us. If they need to find a new warehouse, or if they need to find a new flagship store or regional headquarters, we can find that for them. So there's much, much more to the relationship that we're building with our corporate clients worldwide than merely the M&A advisory. So that's the reason why we don't fear the boutiques. We have so much more to offer than they can.
Yeah, great. And in this integrated banking model, what role does ethical banking and therefore also ESG play for BNP Paribas globally? Maybe you have a specific ESG agenda you want to share with us.
So that's a very good question. If you allow me, Moritz, I will just deal with it in two parts. I'll start with ethics, and then I will speak about sustainability and ESG. So starting with ethics first. Alors, I'm going to state the obvious. Banking is a risky business. That's the reason why it's a highly regulated industry. And we all understand why. You know, there's been a number of incidents in the past. Think of the Lehman crisis, think of the many blow-ups that have happened over the years. So it's only natural that banks are heavily scrutinized and regulated. But much more than this, you know, as one of the largest banks in the world, we think it is our duty to ensure that we protect market integrity. It's our duty to ensure that we create a safe global financial system, that we are not putting taxpayers' money at risk, that we are not facilitating or supporting money laundering or the financing of terrorism, just to give a few examples. So we're on high vigilance when it comes to the surveillance of our activities. And ethics are at the core of what it is we do every day. You know, banking is about trust and banking is about safety, safe financial markets, and ensuring that we are a trustworthy counterparty for our clients worldwide. So we consider that we have a critical responsibility towards society. And the way we see it operating ethically is just not an option. It's our duty. You know, it's something that we are wearing like a badge of honor. So we care immensely about that. And likewise, we care immensely about ESG. Alors, ESG is an acronym. It's a complex that has it's a concept which has kind of got diluted over the years. And of course, the environment, the social, and the governance matter, they are all of equal importance. But one area is of particular importance in our mind is climate, and to a larger extent, natural capital and biodiversity. And this is the one area where we have decided to concentrate all of our efforts. And the way we're doing this is in a number of different ways. Alors, first, it's been through building up product platforms that could help our client base make sustainable investments, but also raise capital in a green kind of way. So you might be familiar with this, but there's a number of financial instruments like green bonds, like sustainability-linked bonds or green loans, which are of growing importance. And this is an area in which we've been investing a lot of time and energy in building up our expertise to help clients structure these, but also our distribution capacities to make sure we find the investor base that wants to buy that. And as a result, over the years, we've built the #1 global franchise. If I look at you straight in the eyes, Moritz, there are not that many businesses where I can claim BNP Paribas is the undisputed global leader in an area. This is true in green bonds, it's true in green loans, it's true in sustainability-linked bonds on the global stage, just like in Europe. But beyond this product offering, we've also taken a lot of steps to ensure that we, on the one hand, support our clients in the industry and the energy space in helping them decarbonize their business models. So we have created, as a result, a dedicated group. That's one of my brainchilds. We've dubbed that the Low Carbon Transition Group. It's now combining over 200 bankers worldwide. They are bankers of all trades of life. They can have an M&A background, they can have a sectorial background, a debt or an equity background. But at the end of the day, what they're doing every day is working with clients in the energy space to help them develop their clean energy projects, renewables, nuclear, to give a few examples. And they're also working actively with our industrial clients in helping them take carbon out of their industrial processes. So we're working on green steel, we're working on green ammonia, we're working on green aluminum projects, on carbon capture and sequestration. Just to give a few examples, or hydrogen being green hydrogen. So hydrogen gets produced with renewable energy or renewable power as the source of energy. So that's in terms of the support we're offering to our client base. And then we've taken very radical steps insofar as we've decided not to be at all involved with fossil fuels anymore. And if you look back, you move back history lane, you look at the time of the 21st COP, the one that took place in Paris when we started to take the net zero commitment. So this is like in 2015, 10 years ago. Back then, if you were to look at our energy mix, the amount of money on our balance sheet that was being lent or provided to energy producers worldwide, well, 85% to 80% of this was going to fossil fuel producers, and 15 to 20% of that was going to energy producers that were looking at renewable projects. Several years down the road, the proportions have been totally inverted. And our objective is that by 2025, it will be 80% green, 20% brown, and comes 2030, we will be down to quasi-zero on the brown side. And this is happening because we're stopping to finance new oil and gas upstream projects. It's happening because we have also reduced our support for the refining industry. And as a result, we're doubling down on renewable energy sources. We're doubling down on these green industrial projects that I was referring to. And this is something we all care immensely about. This is something which I personally have been pushing really hard for. And I'm very proud with what my institution has been delivering. And we get increasing recognition for this from our client base.
Yes, Yannick, and thanks for elaborating on this very important topic, which is, of course, also very important to a lot of young people. And maybe let's move now to the next topic and dive a little bit deeper into your personal career and experiences. What made you choose to study at ESCP Business School? Were you always interested in finance, or did you also have some other early career goals you want to share with us?
ESCP, in the first place, what I have to confess, what really drew me was the P, which stands for Paris. You know, I grew up in Alsace and in the UK and in Italy. When I graduated from high school, I was 17. I had been to Paris only once in my life for 2 days, and so that was a big draw. The fact that the school was right at the center of Paris was a massive source of attractivity. But beyond that, what really drew me to ESCP was first its academic reputation. That was among the very best. It was one of the top 3 business schools in France. And also the fact that it was already very international back then. They hadn't merged with EAP just yet, and didn't have campuses in Madrid, Berlin, and Milan, and London, but they were already very international in nature. And I had the great fortune of growing up overseas. I had the great fortune of growing up in France, but close to Germany, and then spending time in Italy. I graduated from high school in Milan, so I was very attracted by this international dimension. Now, to the second part of your question, finance happened by accident, I have to confess. I mean, when I started studying at ESCP, I had lots of different plans. I first wanted to work in auditing, then I was drawn to strategic consultancy, then private equity. And when I graduated, back then, I'm a little bit older than you are, so back then we still had a compulsory military service in France. I was not too keen on, carrying a weapon and running around in mud, so I was given another option, which was to go and work abroad for a French company. And the one who wanted me then was actually a French bank, which no longer exists, was called Indosuez. But that was my first experience at banking. It was in a wonderful country that is Vietnam, and an amazing city that's Ho Chi Minh City, where I worked for 2 years and fell in love with banking and finance.
Yeah, and you always were loyal to BNP Paribas. But today, and in particular in the financial industry, we often see CVs where employees stay with the same employer for a maximum of 5 or 4 years and then move on to the next opportunity. Do many employees underestimate the opportunities that come with loyalty to an organization?
Alors, I think for a start, most of our employees do not underestimate it because they stick around. And I'm a lifer at BNP Paribas. I never regretted it once in my life. And many of the people who surround me are in the same case. I'm working with people I've known for 25 years. And that, of course, creates a strong element of bonding, and it creates a very, very strong culture. If I look at my close deputies, I'm running a global business. I'm in charge of 4,500 people worldwide, 6 billion euros of revenues. And I've got like 6 super close deputies that are either in charge of the global business line or a regional platform. Out of the 6, 3 are lifers just like I am, and 2 have been around for 15 years. So it tells you that the place grows on you. But more fundamentally, when I get a resume, and I do a lot of hiring, because we do hire a lot of people all the same. Right? It's not just about growing our own. We are recruiting people fresh out of university and as well as qualified, experienced professionals. When I look at the resume and I see somebody who's been changing jobs every 4, 5, 6 years, we have a name for that. We call them job hoppers, and we don't like that. When you're 40 and you've been changing jobs, employers every 5 years, I promise you this looks very fishy. Now, the guy who has been around with a prime competitor that we respect immensely, a Deutsche Bank, a Citibank, or JP Morgan, and spent the bulk of their career there or had 2 employers in their life, they're of interest to us. And that ticks the box. And I've come across of late, with either through interviewing I've been doing with younger colleagues or speaking to the kids of some of my friends, this notion that is starting to spread in academia, in universities and business schools or engineering schools, that if you don't change employers every 3 years, you're a loser. Don't believe that. It's a very bad piece of advice that your teachers are giving you. Stick around. I wouldn't be where I am today if I had not been loyal to my firm, and loyalty gets rewarded.
Yes, I also think so. And you didn't only remain loyal to BNP Paribas, you also had global success. What are the most important aspects to be long-term successful in the same organization in order to also be entrusted with global responsibility?
Well, it's difficult to come up with like the blueprint of all the boxes you need to tick, obviously. But if I was to volunteer a few, like attributes or traits that we're looking for in our global leaders, and maybe this is going to come as a surprise to you, but the first one I would volunteer is take an interest in things that are outside of your immediate area of responsibility. Care about what's happening in the rest of the firm, care about what's happening in the division next door, in the business unit that's sitting next to you on the floor, and an ability to demonstrate an interest in the greater good, an interest in the broader strategy beyond your immediate area of specialty or involvement, is something that is valuable and can be immensely useful to all of you professionally. The second aspect, which I think is of importance, is and it goes hand in hand, is building as broad and expansive a network within the firm as you can. So beyond merely your buddies that are sitting next door because you're part of the same team, but getting to know people in lots of different parts of the organization on the business side, but also within the finance, within what we call the second line of defense, the risk and the compliance department, within the strategy department, and even places as far away from what I do, banking, which is about servicing corporates, but getting to know people that are involved in running our neobank, our digital service offering for individuals. That is immensely helpful and creates a lot of opportunities. And then because we're a global firm and are aspiring for global leadership, having an international experience helps. Having been exposed to different cultures, to living, and it's not just working, it's also living and breathing in a different kind of setting than the one you were born and raised in, is a big plus. And then we look for the classic attributes of leaders, which I've over the years have come to summarize as the 5 C rules. I'm sure you've come across that maybe in some of your leadership classes, but to me, great leaders are 5 things. They're connected, back to my point, internally and externally. They're clear, so they're articulating clear ambitions, clear vision, clear strategies. They're compelling. Leadership is about creating followership. I'm stating the obvious, but if nobody wants to follow you and work for you, then not much is going to happen. So you need this compelling element. But leadership is also about being conclusive, which, believe me, when you sit in my job, is probably one of the hardest things to do. You make decisions non-stop, and you need to make sure these are educated decisions. And last but not least, you must be compassionate. I mean, you must care about others. If you don't like the people you're leading, then forget it, you're in the wrong line of trade.
You mentioned that it can be very hard to make decisions. So what are your daily and what are your long-term strategic duties in your current position? And how do they determine your day? With what do you spend most of your time? Is it customers, strategy, management, or something else?
Well, to tell you the truth, Moritz, as I progress in my career over the years, the most difficult part of running my daily professional life has been just what you described, meaning how do you organize it? And you're in a constant fight for bandwidth. You're in a constant fight for capacity, time. This is, as you grow in responsibilities, that becomes the most precious and scarcest resource of all. Time, to think, to reflect on the strategy, to take a step back and not be always in the rush of decision-making, of dealing with problems, of dealing with deals and clients and many multiple situations. So the way I'm approaching it is in a kind of very military style. And at the start of every year, I take a step back and I think in terms of all the constituents that I have to deal with, the clients, my own people, my bosses, I have a few, my shareholders, and then society. These are our main constituents. Where do I need to allocate my time? And that's depending on where we are, what are the strategic priorities, what are we trying to achieve, where do we need to pay attention to? And it varies. So, for instance, this year, I kind of managed to stick to that. I've been allocating a good 25% of my time to client engagement, so meeting with other senior executives and helping my teams in important presentations, helping them win business. I've been spending also a good 25% of my time with our supervisors. As part of our constituents, they're key. And we are in an increasingly regulated industry, back to my earlier point. And as a result, we have to engage more and more and more all the time. I've been spending a fair bit of time with my teams. I would say a good 25% as well, traveling, walking the front line, meeting with my teams on the ground. I over the course of the last 12 months, I visited over 25 different countries out of the 60 or also where I have teams, and which is testing. You know, it's travel is nice, it's great, it gives you a breath of fresh air, but it's also very tiring on the body and the mind. And then the remaining 25%. I haven't been spending too much time with my bosses and my shareholders this year because everything's going well and I all we need to do is deliver. But I've been spending quite a fair bit of time on our public image, on getting our sustainability and low carbon transition strategy right. And then what I regret, I haven't been spending enough time this year on technology. So 2025, I'm going to be spending a good 20% on generative AI, on the blockchain, on everything that this can help us do and the threats that represents, right? I have not at all spent any time with competitors this year. You know, there are times when it makes sense to engage, understand what's happening, how do they see the world. Right now, I did not. The thing I'm going to pay a lot of attention to next year also is understanding the state of the world. That I do naturally because I'm interested and I care, but geopolitics are a mess. Geopolitics are back, and that's something we must pay a lot of attention to. There's so many tensions, so many areas of risk, and so many tragic situations around the world that we need to factor that into the strategic thinking.
Yeah, maybe let's just dive into technology when you didn't have the time to spend that much time with this year. So you have spent a lot of time in the Media Telcom Finance division of BNP Paribas. What are the main specifics of this industry group?
Well, for a start, I have to tell you, I love that space. I love the telecom and the media industry. This is where I learned and I was taught so much by my colleagues, my bosses, and more importantly, our clients. And I'm actually still very much involved because many of the clients I'm engaging with and kind of personally sponsoring within our firm are somehow connected to that space. Not only, but a few of them. What I have come to love over the years is first, this is not a boring industry. There's always something happening. You know, new players emerging, new technologies being developed. When I started off as a banker, it was, believe it or not, it was GSM. You know, like mobile telephony. Back then, you only had one operator in any single one European market, and all of a sudden you had competition. So you had 2, then 3, then 4, and second point, they all had in common. This is a capital intensive industry. You need to build networks. You need to build storage capacity. You need to invest into servicing the client base. And you're talking billions of euros of capital expenditures. So they are in need of access to capital. They're in need of economies of scale. They merge, they combine, they spin off. So there's always something happening. You know, the amazing thing is some of the deals that I was working on as a rookie banker back in 1999, you know, I was like 27 back then. And some of the deals we were dreaming of creating back then are happening now. So 20 years down the road, 25 years down the road, those very deals that we had been dreaming about and pushing for are actually materializing, and this is great. Right? So it's a never-ending cycle, and it's a fascinating industry, and it's one which is easy to relate to, because we're all using it on a daily basis, right? So that's the what I like about the social. It's, you know, it's grassroots. This is the real economy at play if I ever saw it. It's like production of electricity. This is the kind of stuff we love.
Yes, sure. And maybe just let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Which projects, cases, and deals that you have worked on at BNP Paribas have remained in your mind or memory because they taught you a lot?
And I might surprise you because there's quite a lot of these over the years. But the first one that sprung to my mind when I read your question and I heard it is actually a restructuring story. It's not a new deal. It's not like a company buying another one. It's one which was over-indebted, which blew up. It's a company which still exists today. It's called Vivendi. Back then it was called Vivendi Universal. It was run by a French entrepreneur who had, over the years, taking on a lot of debt, built an empire, and they own publishing assets, they own television assets, they owned music assets, filmmaking, and they were like huge. They own Universal Music, they own Universal Films, they own Canal Plus in a lot of different geographies. And at some point, too much debt, they could not pay it anymore, and the company was on the verge of blowing up. And we were one of their main banks. And so it was in the summer of, I think, 2002. And for a month and a half, I was part of the restructuring team. That was probably one of the most intense professional experiences I had. We were actually sleeping on the premises. They had a beautiful headquarters very close to l'Arc de Triomphe, close to Champs-Élysées, for those of you who have been in Paris, superbly located on the top floor. They had a private garden with grass, and so it was July, particularly warm, and so we, rather than go home at 3 in the morning to be back at 6, I was just taking a blanket and sleeping in the grass and looking at the stars. But beyond this kind of weird professional experience, I learned so much about cash flow projections, valuation of assets, how you build a daily treasury forecast, how you analyze tens, hundreds of different indentures for debt that are each carrying specific provisions, how you arm twist other creditors in accepting the fact that the lifeline you're proposing to put in place to save the company, they need to take up their share rather than just walk and run away. And it was an amazing experience, one where a gentleman who was one of my mentors was personally extremely involved. And every time we were sitting down and he was challenging me on one aspect, I was learning something. So I wish I could tell you that every single day of my professional life, I got home and looked at myself in the mirror and said, man, did you learn something today? Short answer is no. But during those 6-7 weeks, I promise you, every single day when I was shaving, because at some point I needed to get home, I was realizing that I had learned something big in terms of negotiation skills, in terms of technical skills, in terms of understanding of the governance or the corporate finance of a corporation, or merely the dynamics of a given industry. Because, like I said, they had publishing, they had gaming, they had TV, pay TV, and mobile, lots of different assets.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you had a great career. So let's talk a little bit about advice for emerging professionals. For students just beginning their career at BNP Paribas CIB, what key skills and experiences do you recommend they focus on acquiring, also considering the current market dynamics? And maybe you can also elaborate on what distinguishes a good analyst in your opinion.
So the analysts that really stand out and will ultimately make great bankers, I'm sorry to break the news, are not those who understand the Black-Scholes formula and are capable of computing very complex financial equations. They all have in common the curiosity. They try to understand what they're looking at. So it's not just about doing things right. It's not just about running a process. It's not just about making the right calculations. They have the curiosity to understand what is at stake. They have the curiosity to understand the deal dynamics, to ask questions, and to take an interest in what's happening around them. The second great quality or skill that you need to demonstrate is agility or adaptability. The world is changing really fast. Every single one of our clients, my own industry, is going through a pace of transformation and transition which frankly is unprecedented. In 25 years, I've never seen that. And the chairman of my bank, the chairman of our board, who's over 70, is a great individual. We had a chat over a coffee recently, and he told me the same. He said he has never seen such a pace of transformation across so many industries. There's many things that are coming apart, many things that are becoming unraveled, the global trade as we knew it, the global world order as we knew it, and you need to adapt. You can't just stand on your beliefs and your principles. You need to roll with the punches. Sense of excellence. We're in a highly demanding, highly competitive industry where only the very best firms make it, and the very best firms are those who are paying attention to even the tiny details. So it's hard work, it's paying attention to details, it's not cutting corners. ethics, we talked about that, absolutely vital, but that's an obvious one. And then demonstrating strong interpersonal and collaborative skills. The banking, as I'm trying to build it at any rate, and as I think will succeed in the future, is not about egos. It's not about rainmakers. It's not about divas. Those who have XXL kind of sized egos, who think they can make or break deals, and are not what we need. What we need are strong team players who win and lose as a team. And I hope they win more than they lose. And then ultimately, but that's not a skill. It's not something you acquire. But I cannot stress that enough. Life is short. It's demanding. It's hard. It's full of pleasures and satisfactions. Be passionate about what you do. If you don't have the fire in your belly, if you don't love your job, if you don't have the passion, then probably you've made a wrong choice at some point, and that's okay. It's fine. You just need to look at yourself in the mirror and admit it, right? So learn to know yourselves, be yourselves, and be passionate about what you do.
Yes, and we just talked about big egos in M&A, and is that the big mistake young analysts do when starting their career at a bank? Or which avoidable mistakes do you often see young bankers starting their career at BNP Paribas CIB do?
So I wouldn't say that ego comes in the way of a young professional. Ego trips is something that kind of comes to the surface later in life as you progress in your career and you start to have successes under your belt, and you start to forget that those successes came as a result of formidable teamwork and not of your individual talent and genius. Even though your individual talent is contributing to the success of the team, it's not because of single individuals that we are successful, if you see what I mean. So, but there are a few mistakes that I often see. The first one is, and I alluded to that earlier, is analysts can have a tendency to get kind of stuck in their area of specialty, and they kind of dig a bunker or a kind of hole of expertise where they get stuck, right? And so, of course, days are intense. There's a lot of work. I told you about the importance of working hard and commitment and full steam engagement. But still, do spare time to find out new things, to take an interest in what's happening next door, in the rest of the bank. Try to understand what is at work. When I found out that very good analysts, when we publish our quarterly results, they take the time to look at it. They take an interest. It's important to know what's happening in the corporate life of the company that employs you. It's not just about your own unit or your own division. So that would be one. And then curiosity, back to what I was saying earlier, is because you get overwhelmed with work at first, you forget yourself. It's important to continue to learn on the job. But I was referring to AI. Learn about AI, find out what this does, try to understand what is at play there, and of course have a life. See friends, do not drown into work. Go out there, do sports, see movies, see your loved ones, have fun, right? And life has got to be fun. If it's just blood, sweat, and tears all the time, then it's not worth doing it. So that would be my kind of observation. And then another observation is be patient. I've lost count of how many great analysts, associate VPs have kind of burned themselves by wanting to rush through their careers, always being obsessed with what's next, what's going to happen in 6 months, what's going to happen in a year. The world is complex. Things are going at having ambition is good, it's very important, but gaining experience in this complex environment is of equal importance. And so if you miss out on a promotion in a given year and you don't make it to Analyst 2 or VP 2, it's okay. Don't worry about that, right? Don't self-castigate yourself. Don't think you're a failure. Don't start to look for a job out there, unless of course, you've been told to, but just go easy on yourself.
Yes, Yannick, thanks. That is great advice. And probably a lot of young people or students are listening to these podcasts. So when young students listen to this podcast, who are also looking for a career in finance and want to join BNP Paribas CIB, what would you finally like to give them along their way, and how do you usually get there?
Well, it's for a start, it's to demonstrate the different qualities and traits that I was referring to earlier. I'm not going to repeat these. And then there's the process. I'm just going to advertise for a second for my firm there. The best way to begin a career at BNP Paribas is actually through an internship, because that's how you get. It's like in a romance, kind of a dating relationship. Before you get married, you date. And so internship is a form of dating. You can find out for yourself whether you like the place, the culture, the people you work with, and then the firm can see whether you're demonstrating some of those qualities. So applying for internship is a great way to start. And then we've put in place a graduate program, which gives access to lots of different parts of our bank. We have a graduate program for the markets activities. We have a graduate program for our investment banking activities. And I am told that it's actually one of the best on the street, because the way we've structured it is to give over a certain period of time, a year or a year and a half, to give a lot of different experiences to the young colleagues who are joining us. And so you just don't get to spend time in a single activity, but you get rotated. And so you get rotated in 2 different teams. You can do M&A and move into leverage finance, or do equity capital markets and be in the sector, consumer or industrial sector team. And we try also, to the extent you want, to have you work in 2 different locations, 2 different countries. So that's happening, and there's always a period of 6 months in Paris. Not just because it's a beautiful city, but it's also because this is, whether we like it or not, this is where our headquarters are based. So this is like the center of command is there. And it's a great way to get in touch and connect with as many people as can be at the early start of your career. So that graduate program is you can apply online. And in any given year within investment banking, we get 40, 50 graduates joining us in Europe alone, and then we have a number of people joining us in the US and in Asia. So in any given year, we hire about 100 people on the market side and close to 100 on the banking side. So that's a great way to come and work with us, and I hope some of you will be interested.
Yeah, that's also great advice. And I have one last and final question. When you look back on your own career, what was right and what was important? And maybe what would you do different today with all your experience that you have now?
I'm going to start with the one thing I would do differently today. And I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier. I would spend much more time trying to understand IT, to try to understand technology. Banks, the financial industry, of course, it's about people, it's about intellectual capital, it's also about taking risks, so actual capital, if you want, regulatory capital. But these are also very large, complex, global industrial platforms to run, and they are highly dependent on IT. And IT is a competitive edge. And over the years, I've come to realize that you need, if you're working in banking and you're running a business, you need to love IT. Because if you don't love IT, then IT might very well kill you. And so it's a love-hate kind of relationship with IT. So I regret not taking more interest in this over the years. So I'm playing catch-up all the time, and I'm not getting any younger. So this is getting more and more difficult for me every day. And when it comes to what was important over the years, in terms of having a career progression, there's a number of factors. First is the people I got to work with. And more importantly, or more specifically, the people I got to work for. So my bosses. Choose your bosses is my advice. You know, you learn a lot from a good boss. You lose a lot of time and self-confidence with a bad boss. And you can find this out very quickly. You know, from doing your own due diligences, from your own perception and feeling. Trust your instinct during the interview process, get a good sense for who you're going to be working with. My bosses, I've been blessed because my bosses over the years, they've all been exceptional, they taught me a lot, and they helped me a lot. In many cases, they provided me with advice, the nudge that I needed to move to the next phase, and they've been basically championing me. So that's been immensely precious and very, very useful. The second piece of advice or observation is what I said earlier, is build your network. You know, not everything happens because there's a grand plan. You're not getting your next job because people like myself or different business leaders are constantly masterminding the move of every single individual in their teams. You know, well, I regret to say that much, but we're not the puppet masters. We have lots of ideas, we have specific needs at a point in time, but a lot of the opportunities you're going to come across are going to be self-generated by your network. When I moved back from my time in Japan, after 5 years there, the reason I moved back was because my wife wanted back. And she had left her job. She's a civil servant. She wanted to work again for the French state, and we had no choice but to move back to Paris then. I regret it, but there was no job waiting for me. And I had been doing good, and I was a talent, and everybody was telling me, you're a high potential, you're doing great, don't worry. But then when I come to Paris, no job. And HR was saying, sorry, but we'll have to find a kind of waiting job for you. Unfortunately, one of my own connections that I had been working with for years and told me, you're back, I'm moving, my job is available, I'm going to recommend you to my boss, and I got the job. And that helped me. And I'm not saying that my managers or HR had done a lousy job, but that's the way it works, right? You can't know everything that's happening in the firm. And then it's what I said earlier, you know, the bit about fun. I've always been attentive, never to stop enjoying myself. When you wake up in the morning, it's back to the passion and the drive. If you're not looking forward to the day that lies ahead and what you're going to have to do, and of course you have good days and bad days, and that's life. But if overall you're not feeling good about what it is you're doing, then you're probably not at the right place. Again, you probably have made some kind of wrong decision along the way, which is fine, again, as long as you admit it to yourself. Huh? So that's what I would volunteer, Moritz.
Dear Yannick, thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to talk to you, and also the great conversation we had. I personally very much enjoyed it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you very much for having me. I wish you all a very lovely day and more importantly, a brilliant academic and professional career. So all I can say to you is tschüss and bis nachher.